and welcome back to CInephiles Assemble, where I, David DeRose, go through my movie collection and talk about it with you, the internet. But today we are not talking about movies. No. We are delving into my second great love of my life, comic books. As many of you know, this Wednesday, Marvel Studios is going to be releasing their first animated television Disney Plus program, What If? We'll see what happens when established characters take different paths and make different choices, and the ramifications that happen because of it. But this is not an original idea. Since the 1970s, Marvel has put out a comic book called What If that basically deals with the same thing. What if Spider-Man had joined the Fantastic Four? What if Daredevil fought in feudal Japan? And so on. And I figured, with the show coming up, why not read all 200 plus issues of What If and give you my top 10 favorite ones? But then I thought, why do this alone? So I sent out the call. 6 months and 4 episodes ago, I invited today's guest here to talk about our top 10 movies of 2020. And being a great fool, he agreed to come back to talk about our top 10 favorite issues of What If. So, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the master of revels of the streets of St. Charles, host of Geek to Me Radio, your friend and mine, James Enstall. How are you doing, James?
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm very much looking forward to the release of Marvel's What If animated series this Wednesday.
Definitely. Very excited. This is the one I was most excited about ever since they announced their slate of upcoming TV shows.
Same. And I know, other than what we've seen in the trailers, I don't know anything. I don't know how many episodes they're doing. I don't know if we're going to get a grand crossover between different alternate realities at the end. So I'm just happy to see what we get.
Me too. Yeah, this should be very good. I think especially because they're not just giving us animated versions of the comics. This is actually animated versions of what's happened in the MCU itself. So it's brand new stories, which I love.
Mm-hmm. And of course, because of this, it gave me an excuse to go read all 200 plus issues of What If, just as a precursor to this all, which is why we're here today. So I don't want to keep you too late. We're recording a little later than normal. So what do you say we get going with this thing?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. You are my honored guest. So what is your number 10 favorite What If issue?
Okay, so I put them in order from there's so many to choose from. I was flipping through some of them actually I realized, I'm like, I don't know if I've read this one or not, or it's been so long, I read it when it first came out that I can't remember how they ended. But so as I went through, I tried to do A, ones that I remembered reading, B, ones that I was like, okay, this is a very fascinating piece because of some kind of relevance coming up. So to start with my number 10 entry, it's what if the Fantastic Four had remained, the new Fantastic Four had remained a team.
Nice. I always have a soft spot in my heart for the new Fantastic Four.
Yes, it's Hulk, Grey Hulk, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, Danny Ketch, and Spider-Man. And obviously from Fantastic Four, the events in 347 to 349 when the Fantastic Four were taken out and they had to take over as a team, but they disbanded afterwards. And this kind of, again, I'm drawing the line because I don't want to spoil it because maybe some people haven't read these yet, so I don't want to ruin the ending for them. But it's basically, what if this team had stuck around and not disbanded immediately? And it goes into a lot of alternate things that could have happened. Some other villains are thrown in. It's very good, though. But I'm going to put that on my top 10 list because there are a lot of other stories that are just a notch better.
I agree. Now, my top 10 is very, very nostalgia-based. It was actually one of the first comic book issues I ever bought with my own money. It was, and let me get my own little list here, from the original What If 1977 series, number 14, What If Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos fought World War II in outer space?
Yeah. That's a great cover, too.
Yeah, this is equal parts nostalgia and just pure absurdity with the entire thing. I mean, once I was rereading it, I was like, wow, this is really, really silly. And then we get to the parts where they're out in space and Dum Dum Dugan still has the hat on under the helmet and Fury is smoking a cigar in the helmet. And it is so much fun to read. What if can range from like one little change, but it's all pretty much normal in tone and style. And then you get Sergeant Fury in outer space. So, my number 10.
in his spacesuit. Must have had a heck of a HEPA filter on that to get all the cigarette smoke out of the thing so he wouldn't re-inhale his own secondhand smoke. Is that fourth-hand smoke? How is that?
I don't know. All right. You're number 9, sir.
Number 9, going into the original series, as you just did, number 77 from 1977. But I'm trying to pick some ones that might be relevant if someone wants to delve into these now. And obviously, we have Shang-Chi coming up next month on the big screen. So this one is Marvel Comics What If issue 16. What if Shang-Chi, the master of Kung Fu, had fought beside Fu Manchu rather than turning against him? In the comic books, and they're retconning a lot of this because Fu Manchu
You can't
not
use
really good to do right now.
No. Plus, they can't legally use him.
Right, that's true. Yes,
Which is
they
why
had a special arrangement.
Which is why we unfortunately will not be getting any kind of good reprints of the old Shang-Chi comics anytime soon.
Right, but you can always find the back issues. That's kind of the fun of hunting for those at your local comic book stores.
This is true.
Yeah, this one, and not only, so again, if you're kind of unfamiliar with Shang-Chi, not only is this a great what if story, but it gives his actual origin, so you can quickly be like, boom, it's like a 3 or 4 page primer to get you ready for the movie, but then it takes you down an alternate path of what he took in the comic books, where he fought beside his father, who has ended up being his mortal enemy in the actual series. But really great kind of a throwback there for the nostalgia, and also to kind of get you prepared for the upcoming film.
Mm-hmm. And mine is, sadly, the only other issue on this list from the original 77 series. What if, number 35, what if Elektra had lived? And I've actually been doing a lot of catch up with the old Frank Miller Daredevil stuff recently, through just random readings and podcasts. So this was pretty fresh for me, and it's actually written and drawn by Frank Miller. So I always love that on some of those older what if issues, they got the original creators to come in and do alternate takes on their own stories. I always think that's fun. So
yeah.
Plus, and I don't want to give it all away, but it does have sort of a happy ending, which is rare for what if. Most what ifs kind of end in a bloodbath because, you know, no status quo. But also, it's sort of a happy ending for Matt Murdock, which if you've read it, if anyone's read much Daredevil, Matt Murdock is kind of the punching bag of the Marvel Universe. He never really gets a break. So anytime you get to see him be happy, I like it. Plus,
he's currently in jail, if you're reading the current series, so.
Indeed. There's also one other reason I love this issue, is because so there's what if issues where it ends happy, and what if issues when it ends sad, and then there's a third type of what if issue. There aren't that many, but it does feature the central character of the what if series, the Watcher, you ought to, just being a jackass. Because, and it's usually at funerals, there are a couple what if issues where it'll take place where a character has died, like Elektra in the original series, and he's just there talking, this is the framing device of this issue, he shows up, and he's telling Matt Murdock, what would have happened if Elektra had lived? And it's just the Watcher twisting the knife a bit. And it's always fun to see the Watcher get his jollies like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not the nicest guy. I mean, we had Rogue Watchers and the Fantastic Four and everything else, but yeah, as much as for his non-interference, he's kind of a jerk overall.
Yep. All right, we're on to number 8.
My number 8, so we're going to pop into the second series, which came out in the 80s. This one was just kind of such a fun and offbeat story, because we've seen, the question's been out ever since we saw Endgame is, well, who else is capable of wielding Thor's hammer? So this one begs the question, what if Rogue had possessed the powers of Thor? And it's Al Milgrom, who's a famous artist and writer for Marvel, said that it was kind of a running joke in the Marvel bullpen that any what if story either, well, not that much changes, or the world blows up. And there's not a lot of in-betweens. But this is one where Rogue, who started out as a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, as people may remember from Avengers Annual number 10, joined the X-Men and things like that and went down the right path. But this kind of, for someone who has towed the line, it's very interesting to see her be able to wield the power of Thor and what someone like that, who might be at times more ambiguous, would do with it. So that, just from that point of view, is a lot of fun.
Yep. That's one that, it took me a second to remember how that one went. And yeah, that one does get pretty damn interesting.
All right. Definitely.
Mine, we're sticking with Daredevil. This is also from the 1989 What If. Number 73, what if the Kingpin owned Daredevil? This one went in a direction I was not expecting with that title. This is basically, after his dad is killed, the Kingpin basically takes young Matt Murdock under his wing, but not as in the crime side of it. I mean, he basically gets revenge on the Fixer for killing Jack Murdock for Matt, and he puts Matt through law school and all that. And we see all the domino effects of, all right, so he didn't room with Foggy, so what happened to Foggy Nelson, and what happened to Karen Page, and we see all the supporting characters and their changes. But we also get a real humanization of Wilson Fisk.
Yeah.
And that's another really good thing the What If series can do, is you see all these characters that are out-and-out villains, and you can see how just a little change could really bring them around. And then, of course, bad things will always happen, and we'll go from there. But yes, I greatly enjoyed this issue. It didn't go where I thought it would. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's a great one. I can still picture that cover with Daredevil kind of shielding Kingpin on the front of it. It's a great cover, great issue.
Oh, yeah. All right, number 7.
My number 7, we're going back to the original series, because I went through and I looked at a lot of the one-shots that came out after the second series ended, and that they never did a full series of What If again after that second series. It was always one-shots. Some of them are really great, but again, none of them topped what the first and second series did, in my opinion. So again, we're kind of sticking in the Thor and the Asgardian realm, and this one is especially interesting with what we just saw, Loki kind of splitting off the multiverse. What if Loki had found the hammer of Thor? And again, it's a very different, we kind of played with elements of this in Thor, the Dark World, and we kind of saw hints of Loki kind of being a different character throughout the Marvel Universe, and obviously in his own series. But that one was a very different book. Again, it's kind of dark, but I love, it's got that great cover there too, of just it's just all dark, and with just him holding it, kind of gets an ominous feel. But again, I love these kind of what if stories, because this is one of the first ones. Now we're kind of spoiled with how much we've seen of Loki, as I mentioned, especially in the MCU. But this kind of gives us a lot of insight. And this probably came out in, I want to say, like late 70s, early 80s, when Loki wasn't as fully fleshed out as he is now that we're used to him. So it was a very, very interesting read.
If you want a good one from the one-shots, if you haven't read it, I just read it today for the first time. What if Thor had been raised by Laufey of Jotunheim?
I don't know if I think I own that one because I can picture the cover. I don't know if I've read it.
Yeah, it's a different take on the Thor-Loki dynamic. It's Thor getting raised as the Prince of Jotunheim under the Frost Giants. It is. I really, really enjoyed it. It's not on my list, but if you haven't read that, I'd give that a shot.
All right, yeah, I think I own it. I just probably I can't. If I read it, I can't remember, but
yeah.
It sounds good.
All right, my number 7 is like my number 8. It's from the 1989 series. Number 82, what if J. Jonah Jameson had adopted Spider-Man? This is one that I read really early on in my reading career. What's different between this and the Kingpin owning Daredevil is this is really, really Silver Age. It's Silver Age in the writing style. It's Silver Age in the art style. I really, really liked it. Like with the Kingpin, you get really this three-dimensional stance of J. Jonah Jameson, which around this time, he was still basically being a one-note character. Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's become this really well-rounded character now, but back then, not so much. So seeing JJJ as a real person, I really liked it. And it has this surprisingly well-adjusted and happy status quo for Peter at the end. So I really, really like this one.
I will say, if you're kind of digging that J. Jonah Jameson kind of nice guy benefactor vibe, if you're not reading it now, if the current series of Silk that's out, she basically has been hired by Jonah Jameson to be his bodyguard because he's been attacked by this group. But the whole series, so I think they're out to issue 5, really, really good. But you totally see a much different side of J. Jonah than if you stopped reading comics in the early 2000s even. They're doing a lot of things with J. Jonah Jameson in the comic books, which I think are really cool.
I didn't know Silk had a new series out. I'll have to check that out.
Yep.
Definitely. All right, we're on to number 6.
And number 6, This one we were going again with the volume 1, and I had to throw a Fantastic Four title in there, especially with kind of maybe we're seeing the Fantastic Four brought in at some point. We're all kind of waiting for this in the MCU. But this is, what if the Invisible Girl had died? And she's very much the linchpin for the Fantastic Four. She's pretty much the soul of the group, where you could say Ben's the heart and Reed's obviously the brain and Johnny's that fiery spirit. I think Sue, without her, again, I don't want to spoil these comics, but it definitely changes the dynamic of the group and how they operate going forward. And it's something you don't think about, but if you read this, and if you're familiar with the Kirby run early on, and you go back and kind of read the stuff from that era, it can show you what a hole having Sue Storm gone would make. So that's why that comes in so high on my list.
Definitely. That did not make my list, but it definitely made one of my honorable mentions. I love that issue. All right, I'm cheating. I'm definitely cheating with my number 6. It's from 1989, and like your one with Shang-Chi, this is a major one for the MCU right now. It is What If from 1989, numbers 35 through 39, Timequake.
Yes.
Yes, this is another nostalgic one because the first issue, the What If the Fantastic Five had invaded the Negative Zone, was one I bought sight unseen and never read the rest of it until like 2 days ago. But it is the TVA, it's Immortus, it's the Timekeepers, which is huge for the Loki TV show, as well as actually leading into actual Marvel continuity with the amazing Kurt Busiek maxi series Avengers Forever later on. It all stemmed from this. It's Roy Thomas writing, who is a master in comics. Some of the other ones in there were What If the Cosmic Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy had been defeated by Korvac? What if Wolverine and his ex-vampires had conquered the world during Inferno? What if Thor had become a thrall of Set? And what if the Watcher saved the multiverse? But yeah, this could have been the grand finale for the entire What If series, because it brings in so many of the alternate realities. The Fantastic Five from issue 1, the Cosmic Avengers from 19, Vampire Lord Wolverine from 24, and the Fantastic Four when they got different powers from number 6, and the powerless Fantastic Four from number 36. So just this grand finale for What If, and I'm really hoping the season finale for the animated series What If, we get something along these lines, where we see alternate versions from previous episodes all having to band together.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So, yeah. Cheating, because it's 5 issues, but hey, it's my show. I can do what I want.
But it's one story, so it just happens in 5 parts, so there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. Timequake as a whole, that's your choice. That makes sense.
Timequake. All right, we're halfway there. Mr. Enstall, what is your number 5?
Number 5 on the list, it is a Daredevil one, so hopefully you'll appreciate this. And of the Daredevil ones, I looked at a lot of them. I was thinking about what if Daredevil had killed the Kingpin from the second volume, which was a great kind of showing it. He had that moment during the Born Again storyline, but didn't, take it originally. He ends up doing it. A lot of different ones I was looking at. I almost went with the one you picked, What If Elektra Had Lived, but in the end I ended up, because it's just such a different story, what if Daredevil had become an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And that was just, it's kind of cool to see, because we're used to him being the loner, the vigilante, but him as a structured agent in a team gives, especially at that time when this was written, such a different dynamic to the character of Daredevil overall. And I just really enjoyed that story quite a bit.
I always love when we get alternate tales of teenage Matt Murdock. Like after he was blinded, but before he became all dark and depressed. It's always good. I do love that one, yeah.
Yeah.
And I want you to stop reading my mind, sir, or hacking into my computers, because my number 5 is from 1989, issue 2, What If Daredevil Had Killed the Kingpin? Because it is so freaking dark. I mean, I'd mentioned how I've been reading some of the Frank Miller Daredevil stuff, including Born Again. And honestly, this feels like it could have been lifted from an alternate timeline where Marvel decided just to end Daredevil with Born Again. It feels like a series finale issue. We get Murdoch's descent into madness after killing the Kingpin. You get a great appearance by the Hobgoblin, and one of my favorite villains, just for the complexity and the mystery of it all, and this gang war filling the void after the Kingpin's death. Yeah, it really felt like it could have been the genuine last issue of Daredevil, just the way it was written. And
I would agree.
it is dark, though. It's like, it should be in every trade paperback of Born Again, just at the end.
Yeah, just that's a great idea, actually, to have it. But it could have happened this way, and you turn that last page. Yeah, that was again. I almost added that one, but I ended up going with this one. So,
all right, great minds.